They made people felt that they were not part of the politics or a part of Pakistan's society. So we went ahead and did what is known famous as the 7th National NFC Award, in which we decided how the different provinces would share the different financial allocations and budget. It's not an easy thing, because one thing everybody fights about is money. We then held elections in northern areas, changed the name to Gilgit-Baltistan, had elections, formed a consensual government. The judiciary was restored. The 18th Amendment, which I was talking about, was passed, which is very significant. It gave a devolution of powers to the province. It removed the president's powers, overwhelming powers, and the president voluntarily gave them up, President Zardari, which I think is the first time in the history of Pakistan where a president has voluntarily given up his power to the prime minister. And it all went without any great cataclysmic or any great street events. It was done smoothly, and the entire parliament sat down, and this transfer of power took place. And I think that again was a historic event. And sometimes actually when history passes in front of your eyes, you don't sometimes see it. It's only many years later you realize the importance of what happened. And I feel the importance of all these events when even renaming the frontier province of Pakistan, when we called it Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which was something which the people of that province had been agitating for 60 years. For them, that was just a sense of pride for them. These were all things which people had not been prepared to do in the past. I mean, the National Finance Commission Award had been, for the last 9 years, no award had been passed because nobody wanted to tackle this hot potato. The decision to go into package into Balochistan and to divert the attention towards Balochistan, which has always been a province where there's been a lot of problems in the past. In other words, to address all the major issues, politically, consensually. And then we held elections for the Prime Minister. He was consensually elected. The Chairman of the Senate was consensually elected. The Leader of the House was consensually elected, a lady. The Leader of the Opposition was made the Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And in fact, all the elections that took place, the President was elected by more than 2/3 majority. So out of this quasi-military government, we moved to a full-fledged democracy. There are no political prisoners in Pakistan. The press is free. The international media has watched our press, and sometimes the impression is it's a bit too free. We have a free judiciary. We have rights of assembly. Nobody's powers are curtailed. There's no political prisoner, no civil rights being subjugated. All this while there is a war going on against terrorism. I think that's something to be proud of. And that shows the resilience and the strength and the sagacity of Pakistan's political leadership. And when we were faced with this terrorism, what is important is that all the political forces were united and brought in on one platform. We had a unanimous declaration by the Parliament supporting the army in the war on terror. We had in January 2009, all the major stakeholders again were put on board. We had an all-party conference on Swat and Malakand, and there again, everybody supported the army. And this is very significant because if the civilian forces had not been supporting the army, there is no way the army could have achieved the success that it has. If the army had gone 1 kilometer forward in Swat and demonstrations had broken out against this in the streets of Lahore or in the streets of Karachi, believe me, there would be no war against terror. They would have had to come back, and the situation would have turned into a major conflagration. So the civilian forces, the democratic forces were part of this whole operation against terror. And Pakistan, let's be very honest, has stood alone against this, in this battle. We have made it into our war. People have tried to say, you're fighting America's war. But even the Prime Minister, the President, has openly, publicly, and without any reservation said that this is not America's war, this is our war. And the terrorists are enemies of Pakistan. They may be enemies of America as well, and they're enemies of Saudi Arabia, and they're enemies of many other countries. But they are enemies of Pakistan, and we have to destroy this cancer of terrorism in Pakistan. So the civil society, because of the sophistication of the Pakistan's political leadership, has supported the army, which has been the major factor, in my opinion, for the army's success in this area. Because if you want to go back, it's not more than 9 or 10 months ago when we were hearing that the Taliban were 50 kilometers from Islamabad, and that, Pakistan's strategic assets were under danger, and Pakistan's nuclear program was under threat. I mean, there was everything going around. Everybody who had an opinion, everybody who had to say something was basically concentrated that Pakistan was under threat, Pakistan was falling to the Taliban, and now the whole of the world had to move to destroy this new spreading volcano in the area. Yet within months, we not only defeated them, but we did, I think, something which is historic, which is that when we, the army, entered Swat, and nearly 3.5 million people were displaced. 3.5 million people displaced. They were kept in camps, and normally the feeling is that once refugees come, they don't go back for another 5 years. But 3.5 million people displaced, fed, no famine, no disease. In 3 months, they went back again, and on the 14th of August last year, they raised the slogan for Pakistan Zindabad. And that, to me, was very important, because they did not feel that they were not part of the Federation of Pakistan, that they had been mistreated, that they had been used. No, they felt that they were, the Pakistan government and they together were fighting terrorism. And that's why Swat now today, despite what happened, is possibly one of the most peaceful areas in the whole of Pakistan. And I think that shows how things, what a sea change has taken place. And these people were fed, they were clothed. There was American assistance of about $300 million for the displaced persons. And they were given identification cards, their bank accounts were opened for them. It was not just a political victory, it was a logistics victory to get this whole operation and to get them all back again. There was no incidents in the camps, there was no people fighting for food, there was none of this. The whole thing was managed, and the whole thing showed, again, part of the sophistication of Pakistan's political government, that they could handle this at every level. And I think that, for me, was one of the great achievements of this government, because this was not a war that we started. This was not a war that we had anything to do with. This was something we inherited as part of our unfortunate history. So we had to cope with the fallout. And the way that we coped with it, I think, is a great tribute to this civilian political government. And why I feel for the United States this government is of such great importance is that there was a tradition or a traditional thought among people that Muslim countries are either monarchists or they're dictators. But Pakistan has shown that it is a liberal, democratic, Islamic country. There is, as I said, a completely free press, rights, human rights, every other rights, no violation. If anything happens, the press is free, everything is open. So we are a model as far as, I would say, the Islamic world is concerned. In fact, if you want to go to the third world, I find very few countries with a robust parliament, and if any of you have the chance to see it, plenty of table thumping, arguing, noise, and as Mr. Bhutto once said about India, he said it's the noise and the din of the Indian Federation that keeps the Federation of India together.